Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm John and you're watching Retired Gruntpaw. As you can tell by the title of this video, we're going to be going over a handful of my XTEN 10mm pistols using a primed case to see if I can get it to fire. The saga with the 320 still continues. Again, I'm not for it and I'm not against it. I will say, for full transparency, I absolutely love the XTEN. I mean, this is my favorite carry gun. And matter of fact, this is my carry gun. And this is my second carry gun. And I kind of hate to say primary and secondary, depending on what I'm doing for the day, I'm going to carry one or the other. Should I be involved in some sort of an incident, I've got a spare. With that, here's my first XTEN, and I'll talk about this here in a moment. But with the ongoing issue with the 320, I really don't have a dog in the fight, except for the money that I spent on this. And if these guns are flawed, SIG needs to be held accountable, right? However, if these guns are not flawed, I like to see everybody, in the interwebs here give SIG and all the other folks that they've been hating on a full apologies. With that, let's get into this. The big trend now with the 320 and testing, people are taking their 320s and they're placing a screw or some sort of device inside the trigger mechanism, pressing back on the trigger, making it, putting it right there on the verge of firing. What's the elephant in the room with doing that? With that, what's rule number one, or safety rule number one of a firearm? You don't place your booger hook on the bang switch until you're ready to shoot, right? If you have a holster, and I don't care what quality it is, it could be a top tier holster. If the holster retains the firearm using the trigger guard, and I've talked about this in another video, you've got to inspect the holster and the gun, your holster, and the interface between the two. Nothing should touch the trigger. I don't believe that you have to have a dingus or a trigger safety in there. Nothing should touch the trigger. Now, if the gun is in the holster and it's just like this and it goes off, Houston, we have a problem. And right now, Houston, we do have a problem. There are cases out there where the guns are going off uncommanded. The problem with that is we don't know the backstory, what's happened, prior to the gun going off. And right now, with all these non-disclosure agreements and whatever kind of court orders that are going on to keep people directly involved with these incidences, either they can't speak or they won't speak. And that's leading everybody, including myself, to come out here and try and figure out what's going on. I really don't have a dog in the fight when it comes to the P320 with the 9mm. I like the 9mm. For what it is. It's not my preferred, caliber of choice for EDC purposes. If that's yours, that's great, rock on. The 10mm is mine, and I own many different 10mm handguns. I have a Glock 20, the FN 510, all the Springfield Armories, Smith & Wessons, 1911, so forth. And hands down, the best 10mm gun, in my humble opinion, and to some degree experience, is the XTEN, or the XTEN line. These two handguns right here manage full power 10mm, the best of any 10mm handgun I've ever fired. And with the 15 round capacity, it's tough to beat. Now, without going too far down the rabbit hole, the 10mm with normal spec ammunition was designed specifically by gunfighters to stop violent human threats with normal spec ammunition. The byproduct of it is hunting, bear defense, trail defense, and all other bullshit that everybody keeps harping about. But this is designed, or the 10mm is designed specifically to stop violent human threats, period. We're going to start off with my EDC X10. This gun here has north of 12,000 rounds. Probably has somewhere around 14,000 if I'm, taking an approximate guess. What I'll do is I do have a primed case. I'll stick it in the chamber. I'm going to try to. All right. I'm going to shake it. Nothing's happening, right? I'm going to put it on the block. So with the original drop safety issue that the X10 was having, the physical weight of the trigger was heavy enough that when the gun dropped and landed, something like that, the trigger was in motion, and the abrupt stop of the gun, the trigger was in motion and was heavy enough to break, thus firing the gun. Once SIG redesigned the trigger to look something like the M17 M18's trigger, then the drop safety issue was put away. Now, they may have done something internally with the striker mechanism or the fire control group. I'm not going to get into all that, but the primary reason for the failure of the drop safety was just the weight of the trigger, and that was fixed. And there was also a voluntary recall. So hopefully all those triggers got fixed, but again, we don't know. And, we don't know, what's leading up to these guns firing. Again, I'm not going to put my finger on the trigger and try to manipulate the trigger. I mean, we know that SIG said that the gun will not fire as long as the trigger's not pressed or depressed or anything. So I'm not going to do that. And just to keep the tape rolling, it's a primed case. Let's move to the next gun. The next gun we're going to try is my other EDC, and this is the XTEN Comp. This gun only has about 2,000 or 3,000 rounds on it. Again, the primer was not ignited, did not go off. No primer hits. Let's try the next gun. This X10 is brand new. It's never been fired. I've dry fired it a lot. I've practiced drawing with it a pretty fair amount, but I've never fired it. Put a round in a primed case in the chamber. It does fire, but again, no primer strike. Let's try the next gun. Here's my X10 Endure. This is still brand new. I've never fired this. Drop a primed cartridge in there, close it, locks up nice. Nothing. Let's try the next gun. This is my first X10, and I believe I have somewhere around 767 rounds through this gun. I did have 2 malfunctions with it very early on, and I did get this gun pretty much right after it was released. And if I'm not mistaken, I'm wanting to say they were failure to feed. And I was, at the time, I was shooting MagTech 180 grain full metal jacket, and I shot a bunch of MagTech. With this, now the grip module on this is not, well, it's a modified OEM grip module. One of the subscribers pointed this out to me a long time ago, long before I started YouTube, and I actually like it. It's a very aggressive grip texture, and I'll roll in a picture of that. But it's a little too aggressive for everyday carry. If I were going to open carry this or have this like in a tactical style holster, this would be the grip module I would go with. With that, let's go ahead and drop a prime case. I do have something else to say about this gun before I try this. I will say, if any of these guns are going to fail this particular test, it'd be this one. Again, nothing. And there's the prime case. Let me elaborate on what I was talking about just a moment ago. So here's my first XTEN. It does have the more aggressive grip module on it. The issue I had with this is with the magazine out, unloaded, listen. Compared to, this has been my XTEN that I've carried quite a lot. This gun is a lot looser fitting, if you will. And I'm not pointing it directly at me, it's off to the side. But there is a good bit of play between the slide and the frame. I did send this gun to SIG and, complaining about the fitment. And they sent it back to me saying this was normal or this was within specs. This is, of course, long before even the drop safe incident came to light. Let's see if I can get that on film here, but anyway, it just bothers my OCD. But this, I mean, everything's going to rattle a little bit, but the fitment of this is a lot better than this. So with that, with what I've seen on YouTube with slide to frame fit, and the play between the slide assembly and the fire controlled, grip, golly, if I can talk, the fitment between the slide with the striker assembly and the receiver with the fire control unit, this is the sloppiest one I've got, and it still passed my little, pounding, I guess. So with that, I mean, as long as you keep the finger off the trigger, I believe you'll be okay. With that, I still understand there's a problem, and I'm still very, very weary and cautious of the 320, of any of them, especially, the 10 millimeter, because I do appendix carry this. But so far, everything works fine. I have checked the fitment of my holster with this. Nothing touches the trigger. This particular firearm interfaces with the holster by attaching to the light or holding on to the light, so nothing touches the trigger. And it's got a good fit to where I can't stick a finger or something like that down into the trigger while it's holstered. I know somebody out there is thinking, but Grandpa, you said you're going to try it with the magazine in place. I'm about to do that, and I'm going to do this in one take. So hopefully nobody accuses me of not placing a primed round or prime case into the chamber. I've already had one or two people accuse me of that in one of my other videos. We're going to go in the same order. So I have my XTEN, XTEN comp, my spare XTEN, my Endure, and then my very first XTEN. There's my XTEN. You'll hear the primer if it pops. Even hit the little red dot for you. So, all right, nothing. There's the primer. All right, let's go to the XTEN Endure. Same thing. Try and be as graceful as I can while doing this on video. All right, it's loaded, right? All right. Yes, I do need to put some blue Loctite on these screws. Well, again, there's the primer. All right, here's my spare XTEN. This thing's still pretty tight. If nothing else, I'm getting the dogs over there excited. Prime case, XTEN Endure. Magazine. And the one I'm most excited to test. And if anybody wants to see me do a torture test of this XTEN, please let me know. Leave a comment below. And also tell me how you'd like to see me torture this. SIG kind of pissed me off with their response to this, so I've left this one alone. And I've been considering either keeping this as spare parts or doing a torture test. So again, prime case. Moral of the story, keep your finger off the bang hook, right? Or a bang switch. And just to show they all do work. Let's wrap this up. It came to my attention earlier today that the Air Force arrested an airman that's involved with the M18 of the airmen, right? Trying to be careful with what I say. I don't want YouTube to slap me on the hand again. With that, I do appreciate what everybody's doing by spreading the word. If there's a problem, say something. If you see something, say something, right? However, let's stop bashing things until we understand what's happening. Yes, we see a gun going off, but why? There's a reason. Just like we see a traffic accident, we see vehicles crash into each other. Do we automatically blame the gun, or I'm sorry, blame the vehicles? No, we blame the operator. I'm not saying that SIG's not at fault. Please hear me out. I'm not saying SIG's at fault. And you know, I'm not for them and I'm not against them. They could be 100% at fault. I don't know. And from what I've seen elsewhere, nobody knows. There's a lot of speculation and there's a lot of clickbait titles that will draw you to click on the video only for them to put allegedly or something in small print, you know, to protect them against defamation. So until then, this is probably going to be the last video or last of this that I'm going to talk about. I've got other things I'd rather be talking about, but it does kind of bother me or bug me to some degree when people are just constantly bashing something and they don't understand what they're talking about, or they just jump on the trendy bandwagon and just put out a video because everybody else is doing it, so let me do it. And this is something I've been wanting to do for a while. I can care that the 9mm are at fault, so be it. I can either put them in the trash can or I can send them back to SIG or whatever. I really don't care. The only guns that I'm concerned about is this, the XTEN, just because, man, I love to get one, not so much this one, but man, I love the ergonomics of this. This gun for like home defense or for vehicle defense where you got to shoot close, shoot fast. And as Kivio Tactical says, quick, violent, over. And that's very much the case. Man, this right here is hard to beat. Man, I absolutely just love this gun. And shooting this, even with Buffalo Bore 180 at, well, out of this gun, I'm getting up to about 1375 or thereabouts from a 180 grain bullet. And that's spectacular. I mean, it's no 44 Magnum, but it is about 300 and some change feet per second faster than the 40 Smith & Wesson. And some folks may say, well, you know, you have a 18 or 20 round capacity in 9mm versus 15 for this. And what I would say is it's going to take 2 or 3 rounds on target for somebody to stop a violent human threat with a 9mm, whereas it may be done with 1 or 2 from this, all things considering, drugs, adrenaline, so forth, so on, and how motivated the person is. So anyway, with that, appreciate everybody's time and attention. Please drop a comment down below what y'all think. I love to hear it. Love the interaction. It helps keep me motivated to keep these coming to you, and give me suggestions of what y'all like to see in the future. With that, carry everywhere you can, stay safe, and we'll see y'all in the next video. Take care.